Good evening, and welcome back to the Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. Now we've been looking at a number of interesting things around the world, in different countries, in different cultures. We've certainly got a start, at least, on some of the strange things that might be out there. But having said that, of course, we may come back to a few of the things that we have covered as interesting things turn up and new topics or new angles to discuss. But we are sort of going to round off where we have been thus far to see at least a certain amount of ending to that before we start the next big topic. And depending how things go and how many people comment and what have you in tonight's live, we may start the next big topic, at least in the basics, even tonight, or perhaps not. Philpati, welcome. We shall see how we go and what we do, but as always, when we begin, we are going to start off by pointing out that we have only one rule on this channel. Hey, Kaya. And the rule is that be polite. Should you for some reason decide to not be polite, you will be given the boot. But that said, you're welcome to agree, disagree, have whichever opinion you wish. We do, of course, have a great number of different cultures and religions on the channel, so we are all going to have our own opinions, and we are glad that you do. And you are more than welcome to comment and share all of them. We would love to hear what you think on the topics and more, absolutely. And see how we go with that. Of course, as we are progressing, I'm going to absolutely invite all of you to like, comment, share, subscribe, give lots of gifts, and do all of the amazing things that will assist the channel to grow and do more. Welcome to all of you who are new, and welcome to those of you who are old peoples on my channel. It's always good to have you back. So let us look about beginning. Now, as we have been going along, we've talked about ghosts. We have absolutely talked about curses, and we have talked about cryptids and what they might be and whether or not they really exist, etc., etc. And I must admit it is somewhat ironic that in this day and age we have so much better technology in order to find any evidence of the supernatural or the paranormal, but at the same time technology has gone on sufficiently with AI creation and all the rest of it that we now cannot really trust the technology that we have, which sort of says it all, really, doesn't it? Cutley, welcome. I'm glad you joined in. So yeah, it seems that the more we know, the less we know, which perhaps says something about humanity in all kinds of ways, but nevertheless, I thought I would end off with a couple of stories and things of my own for your entertainment, if nothing else. Some of them I can't truly explain, which adds to the amusement thereof, if nothing else. But give your opinions, and if you think I've completely lost the biscuit, that's quite all right too. The first story was, in fact, the oldest memory I have of encountering anything, and I can very much prove none of this. The oldest memory I have was of what I refer to as, I suppose, a haunting of a kind. I didn't call it that at the time. I think I was far too young to put any logic to it, and it occurred in two parts, so give your opinion. I remember starting off, we were staying in a particular house on the coast in South Africa, and I started off getting nightmares of something that was in the closet. Now, for a small boy to have nightmares like that is in no way surprising. Um, they were disturbing, as you can imagine, and I went and told my mummy all about it, who said, "Don't worry, they're just dreams. You don't need to worry about anything. Just go back to bed." So, of course, that is what I did. But I suppose because the way I was raised and the fact that both my parents were very, very much scientists, um, I had a particular bent towards if something is there, deal with it. So I decided, in the face of the fact that I really thought there was something there, that I was not going to sleep. Hey, Ghost, welcome back. I decided, no, whatever is there in the cupboard or in the corner of the room there, it and me, we are going to solve this one way or another. So I went to bed like a good little boy at the suitable time, shut the door as is proper so that the parentals would not be disturbed, as you can imagine. And instead of getting into bed, I sat myself on the top of the bed and I watched that damned cupboard. And I waited, and I waited, because it always started at a certain time. And my theory, such as it was that if it's just a dream, nothing will happen, because clearly you only have dreams asleep. So there I sat, pinching myself, clutching a turned off torch, absolutely pant-wettingly terrified, waiting. And sure enough, at the same time, whatever this slightly glowing figure was, came out of the corner of the room, and I knew I was awake. Whereupon, much thanks for the likes there. Whereupon, as you can imagine, I'm talking, I was about 7 at the time, 6 or 7. I was under the covers because, as every kid knows, being under the covers protects you from everything. I was under there so fast that you can barely believe the speed I moved. Much thanks for the like there, Gizmo. So there I spent the rest of the night until eventually I did fall asleep. But yeah, that was my first encounter, and I know I was awake, and I do not know what it was, but it glowed. And you may say what you will, but it was linked to a certain orb which started appearing at around the same time, but not in the house, in the garden, and specifically in the swimming pool. And of course, that stopped me from ever swimming in a swimming pool ever again. But it was something, and it was there, and I was awake. So at that point, I decided we really don't know what is out there, but damn it, it's there. I wish supernatural things were real. Well, some of them might be. And if you join on with our lives, which happen pretty much every evening except for Sundays, we do explore these topics. And certainly, if you have any particular ones you would like looked at, I would be glad to do a little research and see what we can find. But yes, this was my first experience thereof. And yes, as you can imagine, being a little kid, it truly terrified. But it made me start keeping an eye out there. Now, the next story, and as I say, all of these things happened to me personally. Um, the next interesting one that I think is worthy of mention uh, was I used to hitchhike to go and see a friend of mine, and he lived in town. I lived in a village out of town. And if any of you know Natal, South Africa, and you know where Hillcrest is compared to Pinetown, you know that to get down, you have to go down what is known as Fields Hill. Now, Fields Hill is a particularly awful hill, well known for its accidents, really not the nicest of all in that regard, but nevertheless, um, I went on down, and the person that gave me a lift dropped me off at the bottom of Fields Hill because they were turning off towards the industrial area, and I was going into town. So I hopped out, and as I'm walking down, I realized ahead of me was a large crowd. Um, I'm nosy, I want to know. Well, this time I was around, I'd say 16, 17. So I wandered over to see what was going on, but the crowd was too big. And of whatever happened had just happened. So I look at the guy next to me, who's a fellow standing there in a cyclist's outfit with helmet and all. And I said, "What's going on?" And he looks at me and he says, "A cyclist just got hit by a car. I think he's dead." I thought, "Oh, okay." And at that moment, the cops arrived, and of course, they cleared everybody away to let the ambulance in, and I could see now, as everybody dispersed, what it was. And indeed, a cyclist had been hit by a car. Only it was the cyclist I'd just been talking to. And when I turned around to see where he had gone, he was nowhere to be seen. So, was it a ghost? Who's to say? Now, the next interesting one that happened to me was one of my, when I just left school, and I went for my very first job interview, and the particular place of work was a chemical factory, and they didn't have suitable offices to do interviews in. So they hired a room in an unused building in Durban. And I went down, and it was on the second floor. It was a bit of a pokey building, but an office is an office. And there was one stairway up only, and there was a front room and a back room. So the stairs came up into the back room, and then you could go into the front room only from the back room. So they were in the front room doing the interviews, and all of those who were keen to apply were sitting in the back room. And I walked in, sat down. There was one girl there in the room, and we started chatting. And then two more guys came in, but I sat there chatting to this girl, you know. And then the guys came out and called the first fellow in and the second fellow in. Then he looked at me and said, thanks, we've done all we need to for today. So that's a bit odd. I came all the way down for the interview and you're not going to interview me? And as we're leaving, one of the guys that was interviewed turned, looked at me and said, if you weren't sitting there talking to yourself, maybe they would have interviewed you. And I looked at him and I thought, what? I was talking to her and I looked behind me and the girl was standing there and she smiled very sweetly and disappeared. So yeah, I lost my first chance at a job because of a ghost. Now, over the years, I've seen a number of strange things, but the absolute creepiest, I think, happened to me in Johannesburg. And here is what happened. First of all, I was working as the health and safety officer on a very large festival. And I have to be honest, it was non-stop. We would work until past midnight, go home, grab an hour's sleep, and had to be back there 6 the next morning. So you're getting, like, with traffic, maybe 2 hours sleep a night. And this went on for 3 months. It's a hell of a job. It was very good. It was well worth it. But unfortunately, in order to keep my energy up going all day like that, I very foolishly partook of far too many Monster energy drinks and Coke for the sugar. And a couple of months after the big festival, what happened was I went into a diabetic coma. I wasn't diabetic before, but I certainly was afterwards. So I spent a week in a coma in hospital, and when I woke up, they didn't allow me out for a couple of days while they monitored and made sure that I wasn't going to drop dead. So in all, I spent about 2, maybe 3 weeks in hospital. And towards the end, I was terribly bored because, unfortunately, I was very, very weak physically because I'd been in the bed the whole time, not moving. So I was practicing walking and, as you can imagine, getting my strength back, my muscle tone back. But I couldn't go very fast. I mean, I started off literally walking around the bed once and then was exhausted. But I was in this ward with another guy, and this guy had been using very dodgy. I forget the term. You can correct me if you know it. It's you inject yourself with it to build huge muscles, but no, it's not testosterone. It's the other thing. It's based steroids. There's the man. My friend has given me the. So, but now he wasn't getting proper medical grade steroids for doing this. He was getting it on the black market type thing, and it wasn't good. And what happened was, his arm went into severe sepsis. I mean, like it was twice as thick as my leg. It really was bad, and it was actually clear he was dying. There was no question about it. And he was in a huge amount of pain. Now, basically, what that meant was he moaned the whole time, so I slept not at all. I can't blame the lad, but as you can imagine. Hey, Hulk Hogan, welcome back. So there he is in the bed right next to me, and I can't see him because there's a curtain around his bed because, yeah, they kind of know. And I would say it was around 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, you have lights, um, dim ones around, and there's a nurse down the hall, so if you bang the button, they'll come running down to you and what have you. And I'm sitting there, and suddenly he went kind of quiet. And I realized that, yeah, this guy's gone. It's happened. And so I'm not tired because I slept all day anyway, because I can't go anywhere. And while I'm sitting there, trying to read on my phone, um, I see two shadows on the wall in front of me of people that walked in, only there are no people to make the shadows. It's just the shadows. And they come across to the bed next to mine, and they were there for a minute or so. And then, and here's the kicker, three shadows walk out. So I sit there and I'm like, that happened. Okay. And while I'm sitting there wondering what to do about it, I sort of think to myself, look, it's not like I can run away. So there I stayed. And the next morning, the nurses came and they did their inspections, as they always do, and the one runs out, and then they make sure that they're in there and the curtains are all shut, and the doctor comes up to me, he says, listen, I don't want to shock you, I'm terribly sorry, but there's something you need to know. And I said, oh, you're talking about the fact that the guy in the bed next to me passed on at around 2 o'clock last night. And the doctor stares at me for about 5 minutes and says, that's a very, very specific time. And I said, yeah, I saw him leave. And the doctor sort of looked at me and was like, right. But yeah, was it that? I know I was awake because I was messing on my phone and I was not in any way even trying to sleep. I was trying to keep myself sitting up and do a little bit of exercise type thing because time didn't really make much of a difference anyway. So, yep, I was awake. I saw it, and I saw two shadows come and collect a third shadow. So, let me know what you think. Karina, hello. You wondrous individual. Much thanks to you. I hope that you are having an absolutely fantastic and wondrous day. Um, so, you are a truly astounding person, and I thank you greatly for that uh, for that kindness. Yes, you are a wondrous, wondrous person. So 30 degrees centigrade, I hate you with a passion because where I am, it's 4. So, yes, you who are in the far north in the cold country, suffering with decent weather. And here we are in Africa, freezing away. Ha, and you laugh at me. You horrible individual. But yes, guys, give me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Uh, did I at some stage go completely mad? Or did I really see the spirits of the afterlife come and collect uh, this guy? He was a Zulu fellow, very nice guy. I'm sure he would have been a lot more fun to talk to in a different situation, but he was in a lot of agony. Um, but certainly, I know for a fact from discussing things sometimes when he got some extra good drugs to help manage the pain, that he was a believer in the traditional um, faith, and as such, the ancestors. And I suppose you could argue that the ancestors came and collected him when his time was there. So I don't know. You tell me. I don't have an answer to that one, but nevertheless, it makes for an interesting story, doesn't it? And of course, as things have gone on, I have a few other stories and what have you. But we are going to leave the ghosts behind and move along a little bit. And the next story, which again, it really, really did happen to me. I can't prove it because of varying things, but um, maybe I am truly insane. I'm sure that Karina considers me to be completely insane, so we shall leave it at that. But this next story is about a cryptid, or maybe not. Maybe I was mad. But it was sometimes, thank you, darling. It was when I was working in northern KZN, right out in the very, very rural areas. And I went for a walk the one day and I got a bit lost and couldn't find the road. And I knew the directions of where I was going, so it didn't bug me, not at all. And I knew exactly where I needed to go to get back to the house where I was staying, which was on a mission. I was a brother in the Catholic Church at the time, and so I just took a shortcut, as you do. And as I was walking along through the bush, suddenly in front of me, uh, there was a man. He definitely had a human type face. He stood around 4 foot tall and was covered in hair. He was furry, quite long hair, around 4 inches long, all over his body. And he was digging or something at the roots of some plant. And I jumped up, had a shock. He did. And then he fled before I could do or say anything. And I thought to myself, that didn't look like a monkey. It didn't move like a monkey. And I mean, I've been in Africa virtually my whole life. I've always been out and about and done plenty of hiking, camping, visiting game reserves and all. I know what monkeys are like, and I know what monkeys you get, and I know what baboons look like. This guy was none of that. Wrong color, wrong shape, the wrong everything. Uh, so, what do you say? Did I see some kind of uh, South African Bigfoot equivalent? Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Um, my friend on the other side of the room there is saying to me, yeah, it was a tokolosh. But then, if you think about it, the descriptions of the tokolosh type creature in South Africa really is not that far from a smaller version of a Bigfoot. So maybe it is. Or, as Karina has pointed out with much laughter, maybe I am quite mad. Nevertheless, a couple of things to think about before we start our next topic. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, do all of the good things. And with that, we are now going to move on, if you will, to our next major topic. And of course, it is still supernatural, paranormal, and all of the good things that you would expect in that regard, without a doubt, because that's what we need. But having done so, let us talk aliens. Now, some would say they are not as scary as all that. The little grey men seem to be quite fine and possibly cute. However, other people say that no, you get the reptilians. I know they're popular in America, but we're going to have a look at a few different countries' UFOs, and I will tell you some of the stories of things that maybe were UFOs that I saw. The most obvious ones, which to me would bear answering, I remember I went down. Now, when I was in college, first I was in a college in Durban, and sometimes because my best friend was also in the same college, so on a different course, when there were exams, we would go down and stay at one of the guys' flats and study there because it meant we could easily get into the campus from the flat without any issues, and it saved us the cost of a bus all the way down every morning and a bus all the way back up every afternoon. And it was one such occasion. We had a rather large exam, and before anybody asks, because it was exams, no, there was no drinking whatsoever. Other times, sure, of course, but hey, college is college. But at the time, no, we were studying pretty hard, and we finished for the evening, and we were all smokers. So before going to bed, we went and sat on the little balcony. It was the seventh floor. Yes, the seventh floor of this block of flats. And we're sitting there, and from where we're sitting, because of the way Durban is, we were up towards the top. It's quite a steep sort of a city, which meant that we could see the harbour very nicely. And we're just chatting, winding down, as you can imagine. And as we're sitting there, these lights come shooting across the sky. And then they shoot up at right angle, shoot down, shoot back across, and they sort of played around the sky for a while. And we're sitting there staring at this, and after a bit, my friend says to me, "You can see that, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of didn't want to say in case you said no. I mean, really." Uh, and he's like, "Those lights, no, nothing that we've know of can move like that flying." I said, "I'm pretty sure not. I've never seen anything move that sharply, that fast." And he's like, "No, I know nothing like that at all." So we're like, "Yep, it's bedtime." So off we go. And the next morning, we get to the college and eating breakfast at the canteen, having a cup of coffee before going off to the exam. And we're chatting with some of the guys, and one of them says, "Hey, did you see those weird lights last night?" We're like, "Yeah, we kind of did." And like, "What was it?" And like, so we weren't the only ones to see it. Nobody knew what it was. That was my first real, but it gets better. And it's all to do with Durban Harbour for whatever strange reason. So, much later on in life, I was working and my mother became very sick, in fact, and couldn't look after herself. My father, getting older, couldn't look after her and do a full day's work. So I said, "Well, fine, I will move back home." I was around, I want to say 26, 27, 28. So I moved back home to help look after her. And often she would have issues in the night and she wouldn't want to wake him up. So she'd wake me up because I can handle it better being younger. And I'd help her with whatever and then tuck her back into bed and go back to sleep. Anyway, she comes into my room and it's around about 1 o'clock in the morning. She says, "You need to come and see this." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "You need to see it because if I tell you, you won't believe. Okay, so now my attention is caught, as you can imagine. So I go with her. Now, we were staying in Kloof at the time, and our house was right on Kloof Gorge. Now, Kloof Gorge goes all the way down towards Durban. And from where we were, we could literally see the harbour, even though it's a long distance between Kloof and Durban. You can still see the harbour very clearly. And she had a big plate window in that wall with beautiful view, really, really beautiful. And you could see the lights on the harbour and everything. You could see the lights on the boats. So beautiful view. Only in the sky, there were these two glowing balls, and they were on either side, and they were shooting what looked like lasers between each other. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And smaller balls broke away from the bigger balls, and then they would shoot these little lines back and forth. And she says to me, "You can see this, right?" And for once I was, thinking, hey, nobody's going to believe. Much thanks for the likes, by the way. So I ran and grabbed a video camera that we had, and I videoed this thing. We watched it for about an hour, and eventually the ball of light on the right disappeared. Clearly, what it was shot up by the one on the left, and it won, if you will. And then the one on the left shot up into the air and disappeared. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, damn it, if I hadn't seen it, there's no ways I would have believed it. Not it. But I've got it on film. So we go back to bed, because what else do you do? I got up the next morning and my dad's having his coffee, and my mom was still asleep. And I said, "Dad, you are not going to believe this. This you have got to see." And I get out the camera and I link it to the TV and I play the video. And you can see everything all the way down the valley, the lights on the harbor, the ships moving around on the water, the major, like the lighthouse, everything. And in the sky is absolutely nothing. The camera captured zero. But now here's the thing. I know I was awake. I was with my mother, who saw it too. And yet somehow the video camera was able to film nothing in the sky. Everything else clear as day, no problem. And we had watched it for about an hour. What was it? Love to hear your comments on that one. So, as an intro, let us look at UFOs in South Africa. So, now that we have suitably set the stage, as it were, and you're probably all thinking that I've completely lost my mind, which maybe I have, you never know. We know that South Africa actually has quite a strong history of UFO sightings. Several notable instances reported throughout the years. In 1994, for example, the Ariel school UFO, where about 60 odd children reported seeing spaceships and aliens. Bright lights in the sky over Durban in 2004. Well, I reckon I saw mine back in the 90s sometime, so there you go, confirmation, maybe. Strange lights between Middelburg and Witbank in 2009, and even a police inspector reported seeing an oval-shaped object on the N3 in 2000. So we've got a couple to talk about. Some interesting things, which maybe are something, and then again, maybe are just madness. So, where are we going to begin? the 1914 Phantom monoplanes. Sounds promising. So, from 11th of August to 9th of September in 1914, thousands of South Africans in various parts of the country observed what they believed to be a nighttime monoplane, where they could see the plane sometimes, and sometimes just the headlights. And in some cases, the aerial vehicle performed quite sophisticated maneuvers. This was in the weeks leading up to the Southwest Africa campaign during the First World War, and many thought it was a hostile German aircraft, possibly on a spying or bombing mission. However, the possibilities were discounted and the provenance of the plane remained unknown. The problem was, at the time, planes could not travel very far. It would need a landing and refueling place. And it seems that there were no planes that could do the maneuvers that this one did in existence in the world at the time. So, it appears that whatever it was it Shaggy that said? Wasn't me. So in the 1970s, Benny Smith, owner of Braeside Farms near Fort Beaufort in the Eastern Cape, claimed that he, as well as the local police, fired shots at an unknown object described as a fireball that changed color during the morning of the 26th of June 1971. Rumors circulated that the Grahamstown Army Regiment investigated the site, but could not produce any records. The incident was publicized by international press. Local businesses capitalized on the notoriety, with one tavern calling itself the UFO Bar, featuring flying saucer murals. The local Savoy Hotel posted clippings on the stories on its walls, and in a humorous editorial, the New Scientist stated that the South African government was very fastidious at the sort of immigrants she welcomes, and the little green men may very well be on the prohibited list. Well, we don't know. But whatever it was, as Shaggy said, wasn't me. In the 1990s, we have a number of interesting ones. 7th of April 1991, at precisely 11:15 p.m., a family at the Baviaanspoort in Pretoria described a series of lights in the sky as a hovering triangular craft with a red central light and white star-like lights on each extremity. Similar lights were sighted in the nearby Easternrust township on the evenings of the 8th and the 9th of April, either stationary in the sky or moving. These sightings occur about a year after the Belgian UFO flap concluded. A decade later, similar lights described hovering triangular craft were reported by a family traveling in the Hartbeespoort area, about 50 kilometers to the west. On the 18th of November 1993 at 10:15 p.m., a Meneer Du Plessis and a Meneer Venter, residents of Sasolburg, observed lights in the sky moving from the direction of Vereniging. The family described the lights as a craft similar in appearance to a water droplet that could change color and shape. 2 months later, a nearby town resident found marks on the ground, which he interpreted as being made by a small craft's landing gear. Are we getting visited? Seems we might be. In September and October of 1994, a farmer at Warrenton claimed to have seen lights in the sky he described as a mothership that made a sound like a helicopter or a Volkswagen Beetle engine. That could be anything. A UFO craze swept South Africa from late March to mid-April in 95 that was widely reported in the media. Claims included a hovering object at De Brugge, seen by a woman and the police, and a farmer who said that a spacecraft blocked his way for 3 minutes on a rural road south of Coligny. There were also claims that a truck's engine cut out and digital watches stopped as the object passed by. At 4 a.m. on the 28th of August 1996, lights in the sky described by a Sergeant Nico Stander of the Adriaan Vlok police station in Pretoria were videotaped. Well, they obviously had better luck than me. According to the story, a chase ensued involving some 200 policemen and a Boer 105 police chopper, but was given up at 10,000 feet in the Cullinan area when their fuel ran low. Lights were sighted in the area again during the early hours of the 31st of August and the 1st of September. Around the end of July 1997, Andreas Mathios claimed to film a hovering cylindrical light or possibly a shiny cloud in the sky above the town of Trichardt in the current Western Mpumalanga province. On the 8th of May 2000 at 3:24 a.m., Police Inspector Kriel claimed to have observed an approaching UFO while traveling on the N3 freeway 70 kilometers north of Warden in the Free State. According to Kriel, the orange oval-shaped light was fitted with 2 cupolas, one above and one below, and was wide enough to cover 4 lanes of the freeway. What do you think? Something real or something rubbish? I don't know. How many of you believe in UFOs? Much thanks for all the likes and gifties. You are wonderful, wonderful people. Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly, and I hope you are enjoying Aliens. Let us now move to the 21st century. So, on the 27th of June 2004, Roshni Naidu told reporters that she observed and videotaped a very bright, colorful light changing shape from circular to oval that was suspended near her home in Durban for 3 whole hours. That sounds very similar to my story. In 2009, a number of people saw and recorded lights in the sky they described as 2 formations of high-flying orange-red objects traveling between the towns of Middelburg and Witbank, 25 kilometers apart. On the evenings of the 21st and 22nd of July 2010, residents of Boysens in Pretoria reported that they saw a triangle of bright lights which hung motionless in the sky for 2 hours. So it seems, listening to these stories, that there are specific kinds of alien ships and possibly specific kinds of aliens. We have the triangle ones, we have the round or oval light ones, we have the cigar-shaped ones, and we have the teardrop ones. So right there we have a something to begin with. On the evenings of 11, 20, and 21st of May in 2011, a number of lights were seen that were described as silent and orange with consistent luminosity. traveling faster than any commercial aeroplane over Tierpoort, near Pretoria and Krugersdorp. On the 15th of June, other lights were reported in the sky over Tierpoort. At the 2200 hours on the 30th of October 2011, Meneer van Greuning photographed lights which he described as silent fireballs observed traveling southward in a low cloud near the town of Harrismith. Much thanks for the likes. You are wondrous. Now, two Prestbury residents reported they saw an orange orb in the sky over Pietermaritzburg in November of 2015 and managed to get a blurry photograph. On the 22nd of November 2015, Ear Cobbett took a cell phone photo of what he said were 4 orange orbs travelling swiftly in single file over Roberts Road, Clarendon, in the direction of Greytown. On the 28th of November, social media went wild with various reports of a green light hanging in the sky over Long Street in Cape Town. And around 9:30 at night on the 12th of December 2016, while on an eastward course some 10 nautical miles offshore from Jeffreys Bay, the captain and co-pilot of a Boeing 737 cargo airport reported that they saw an unidentified glowing green object rise past the cockpit, reach a cloud layer some 1,000 feet above the plane before turning back to Earth. A green parachute flare was suspected, but then ruled out due to the altitude it reached. Officials at the Port Elizabeth airport suspected that a stricken vessel or aircraft may have been involved, but the NSRI found that none were overdue or missing. What was it? Well, we also do have a number of stories of alien craft shot down in 1989 and in 1995, but the government said they were hoaxes. Do you believe the government? I don't know. Maybe, and then again, maybe not. Let's talk about the Ariel School incident. Now, this particular school had 62 pupils. It is a rural school, and they are aged between 6 and 12. And this is a big one that actually didn't happen in South Africa itself, but we're adding it on to start ourselves off because it's such an interesting story. This one actually happened outside of Ruwa in Zimbabwe. The average age of the students are between 6 and 12, and 62 of them, as I say, they said they saw one or more silver craft descend from the sky and land on a field near the school. Some of the children claimed that one or more creatures dressed all in black then approached and communicated telepathically to them a message with an environmental theme. However, instead of responding positively to this wonderful message of peace, harmony, and extraterrestrial love, it terrified them and caused them to cry. Jerome Clark, a Fortean writer, called the incident a most remarkable encounter of the third kind. Some skeptics said it was mass hysteria, but all the children claimed it was utterly true. So, I shall move along, but before I do, how many of you are old enough, showing your age, to remember the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Sadly, I am. However, what does it mean, the third kind? Well, alien encounters apparently are ranked into three kinds, and actual contact with a specific alien is the third kind. And I will have to get the rankings for you quickly so we can explain it to you properly. So let's just pop that up and give you some clarity. So, according to the system developed by J. Allen Hynek, there are three primary types and then further subdivisions, so we can all become proper ufologists. The close encounter of the first kind is simply seeing a UFO. A close encounter of the second kind is seeing a UFO and observing physical evidence, such as crop circles or radiation that is left behind. A close encounter of the third kind is making actual contact with animated entities, be they humanoids, robots, or occupants of a UFO, further categorized by Blucher into aboard, both, close, direct, excluded, and frequency communication without visual contact. None of that made sense. I will find out more and let you know as we move along. The close encounter of the fourth kind is when you are abducted by an alien. Cue all the urban legends of probing. A close encounter of the fifth kind is communication between humans and aliens. And the final one is the close encounter of the sixth kind, the death of a human, animal, or alien as a result of the close encounter. So, beyond visible encounters, direct interactions with extraterrestrial beings, raising from observation to physical touch or even abduction, communication, which is either through verbal or written, or signal-based using electromagnetic waves or other form of energy to transmit information, or telepathic or psychic communication, assuming they're that good that they can read minds. They have a hard time with mine. Conceptual differences are the first of the problems when you deal with aliens. Extraterrestrial beings may have vastly different ways of thinking and perceiving the world. There may be severe technological gaps that hinder our ability to interact. And the third problem is what they... Jason, thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic night too. And I'm sad you cannot stay, but I hope you have enjoyed what you have seen, and so good of you to at least pop in. Have a wonderful evening further. You are always, always welcome. So the last thing is what they call unknown intentions. The fact that we don't know what they want or why, which, yeah, that would do it, I suppose. We are going to have a look at more in this regard in due course, but not quite yet, as they say. Not yet. We are going to do more. If you've just joined us, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here, and I do encourage you to like, share, subscribe, and all of the good things to keep the channel going, and invite all your friends. Why not? So, We are talking about the Ariel School incident. Now, let's look into it a touch more. Ruwa is a very small agricultural center about 22 kilometers southeast of Harare. And at the time of the incident, it was not even a village. It's what you would call a place name, a crossroads in an agricultural region. And Ariel School was actually a quite expensive private school. Most of the pupils were from wealthy families in Harare. So we're not talking weird or ignorant or anything in that regard. We're talking a decent educational establishment, and assumedly, one hopes, the kids are decently educated. I always remember a comment by Terry Pratchett whereby they say that it is the task of a school to place students in and around learning in the hope that something will transfer from the one to the other, whereas it is the task of students to place themselves in bars in the hope that something will transfer from one to the other. But on that note, 2 days prior to the incident at Ariel, there had been a number of UFO sightings throughout southern Africa. Numerous reports of a bright fireball passing through the sky at night. Many people answered ZBC's radio request to call in and describe what they had seen. And while some witnesses said that it was a comet or meteor, it did result in a certain amount of UFO mania in Zimbabwe at the time. According to skeptic Brian Dunning, the fireball had been the re-entry of a Zenit 2 rocket from the Cosmos 2290 satellite launch. The booster broke up into burning streaks as it moved silently across the sky, giving an impressive light show to millions of Africans. Local UFO researcher Cynthia Hind recorded other alien sightings at the time, including a daylight sighting by a young boy and his mother, and the report of beings seen on the road by a trucker. So, who was right, who was wrong? Well, the sightings at Ariel occurred at 10 a.m. on the 16th of September 1994, when pupils were outside on mid-morning break. The adult faculty at the school were inside having a meeting. The entire incident lasted 15 minutes. When the children returned to class and told the teachers what they had seen, the claims were dismissed. When they returned home and told their parents, most parents came to the school the next day to discuss what had happened. The sighting was reported on ZBC radio, but, well, it was covered fairly well. Tim Leach visited the school afterwards to interview school pupils and staff. And afterward, Leach stated, "I handled war zones, but I couldn't handle this." She interviewed some of the children, asked them to draw pictures of what they had seen, and she said that the children had all told her exactly the same story. That November, Harvard University professor of psychiatry John Mack visited the school to interview witnesses. And in fact, throughout the 90s, Mack had investigated UFO sightings and alien abduction phenomenon. According to the interviews of Hind, Leach, and Mack, 62 children between the ages of 6 and 12 said they had seen at least one UFO. One or more silvery objects, usually described as disks, appeared in the sky. They then floated down to a field of brush and small trees just outside the school property. Between 1 and 4 creatures with large eyes, all dressed in black, exited a craft and approached the children. At this point, most children ran away. some of the older pupils stayed and watched the approach. According to Mac's interviews, the creature or creatures then telepathically communicated to the children an environmental message before returning to the craft and flying away. According to Dunning, the telepathic message aspect of the story was not included in Hind or Leach's reports. Only Mac's, though Hind did report on it later. In Mac's interviews, one fifth grader tells how he was warned about something that's going to happen and that pollution mustn't be. An 11-year-old girl told Mac, I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world and we mustn't get too technologed. One child said that he was told that the world would end because they are not taking care of the planet. The children were adamant that they had not seen a plane. Hind noted that the different cultural backgrounds of the children gave rise to different interpretations of what they had seen, and they did not all believe they had seen extraterrestrials, that some children thought that the short little beings were tokoloshes, as from the Shona and Ndebele folklore, which I suppose, if you think about it, adds credibility. If they had got together and created this as a big story, they would have agreed on explaining it how they saw it. Whereas the fact that they described it in completely different ways but described the same things seems to imply a certain amount of credence to the story. It is interesting to note that the beings described sound very much like the Greys. And it seems that all over the world, when the Greys are seen, they are considered to be benevolent in some manner or form, unlike other varieties that are not so. Now, what happened as a result of this? This obviously became one of the most famous UFO cases in Africa. In June of 2021, an episode of BBC's Witness History went on to talk about this particular event. The case is cited often by ufologists. Skeptics suggest the incidents can be explained either as a prank or mass hysteria, which I suppose is possible but seems a little unlikely. Gideon Reed proposed that the hypothesis of confusion with a touring puppet show designed to promote awareness. Or some say that the children misidentified a dust devil. Sorry, those last two sound even more whack job than saying it was aliens. So, yeah, I don't know. Hind interviewed the children in groups of 4 to 6, with every child allowed to listen. So their stories were cross-contaminated. Mac only interviewed the children 2 months after the alleged sightings. Dunning says that Mac, a known environmentalist, could have prompted and suggested the communication angle, which I suppose, but who's to say? Several of the witnesses maintain that what was reported is true, and in 2014, the Mail and Guardian spoke to one witness who said that she fears that the creatures will return and that she can sense when they are back in the atmosphere. 2016, the witness Emily Trim exhibited paintings that she described as a manifestation of the messages she received from the beings that day. In June of 2021, Barstool sports writer Zar spoke about an interview with in an interview about being a pupil in Ariel that day. He recounted that he saw a bright light come down from the sky and aliens exit it. Other witnesses were interviewed for the 2020 document The Phenomenon, and they also spoke of these things. In 2023, it was mentioned again in a documentary called Encounters, when a former student named Dylan claimed that he was behind the incident and that he purposely told his classmates and other students that a shiny rock in the distance was a UFO. According to his own statement in the documentary, he never thought it would work and was surprised that it caused mass hysteria. Darren's claims in the documentary directly contradict claims made on camera 15 years prior. And what was said to have been seen sounds nothing like what he later described. So maybe he was trying to answer to and cover up. Maybe it was just a hoax. Don't know. So, what kind of possible things are we likely to even say could be out there? We know that all over the world there's a lot of discussion, as it were. Is there something out there? And of course, there's quite a lot of serious scientists looking for answers. We all know about the 1947 Roswell incident, of course. We know that there are all kinds of telescopes and more pointed outwards. And we know that a lot of these kinds of things probably won't be allowed to be given out, if you will. It seems, at least in South Africa, lights are the way to go. That's what you get, the really good stuff. So there is that. And of course, we're going to look at a number of other countries around the world as well as we go along. But in the meanwhile, something that you might not know is that because of the nature of South Africa, it has some of the best places for astrological observation, and indeed one of the best telescopes for observing space is in this country, because many of the problems that you get in trying to look outwards come from what we call light pollution, the fact that there are too many lights and you can't see far enough. So out in the desert is the place to be. It's for this very reason that a lot of the American science, as it were, is out in the desert. It's away from the light pollution so you can see properly. So, does that mean that we are more likely to see things because we have better vision of them? Or is our poking around attracting something? Well, the Pig Out restaurant in the southern Free State town of Smithfield was widely popular back in 2010. And where else in the Karoo could you enjoy a brace of lamb chops under a whirring windmill while tracking the boundless out there for extraterrestrial life? In the front yard of an old home that doubled as the Pig Out and the UFO Research Center were two huge satellite dishes pointing at the sky, and inside the house was a skinny man with wild hair, Henk Swanepoel. Henk was an amateur astronomer who loved the movie Indiana Jones, drank Jamesons, and was a fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Could have been me. And apparently would eat croissants with basil, pesto, and tomato all day long. One room was linked to the universe, and it emitted a steady stream of pings. On the other side, you had a kitchen where the other kind of magic was being cooked up. There were 3 whole computers, which back in the day was quite a lot, actually. And all of them seemed to have odd things they were monitoring. So Henk explained that listening to storms on Jupiter was the aim of one. The other listened to the sun, and the other was listening to the background sound of the universe. Now, it's basically an attempt to search for what they call complex signals, something that might indicate that there is intelligence behind them. And at the time, it was a sort of environment, as it were, where amateurs could make as much a contribution as professionals. Real astronomers were devolving the grunge work to amateurs simply because you have to listen for a very, very long time before you will even get something, maybe. So the idea was they track the weather on the different planets, they look for complex signals, anything other than background static, anything that might imply there is something there. And the radio astronomy that they used, which rather lends itself to this and is a lot cheaper than optical astronomy, you would tune into 1.4 gigahertz, which is more or less where any intelligence would use, because it is the quiet part of the spectrum. According to Henk, I have often picked up anomalies, but later found out it was a bloody satellite overhead. Fair enough. He did say, if we find anything major, it will have a profound effect on the world. And that, my friends, is something we are going to discuss, because it really, really will. But we will get into it. The chances of our first contact with life will be through robotic intelligence rather than biological. And it makes more sense to send robots up to explore than to risk human life. In the same way, in fact, as we have done, sending unmanned spacecraft to Mars. There are protocols, he explained, to UFO sightings. But as he said, you quickly learn that it's probably easier to predict the weather on Jupiter than the weather on Earth. And that makes Jupiter a great one to check for anything. So, how do you know what you are listening to? Well, during the Cold War, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, which those of you who are into spy movies know is NORAD, was set up. And it tracks anything bigger than a baseball in the space above Earth. It keeps an eye on space junks and satellites and all the rest of the things. So before you alert the press with your big news, you check with them. And there is a discovery protocol. Once you've ruled out all other possibilities and checked with NORAD, you then check with SETI's Project Argus that you might be onto something. Project Argus involves the combined and coordinated use of thousands of small radio telescopes worldwide, owned and operated by amateurs, searching for what they call interesting signals. But there's kind of a gentleman's agreement that you don't run to the media first. Also, you must pick up the signal at least 3 times from the same place. Now, really and truly, can you tell? Well, Henk says he's often spoken to people who thought they'd seen UFOs, and he himself wants to be contacted. I'd love to meet the pilots because mostly they're intelligent, observant people familiar with the normal stuff in the sky. Um, People usually talk about bright lights in the sky and strange planes, and they see things that land and everything goes quiet. Or they'll say, I'll tell you what I saw, but don't tell anyone else. Um, and then there are the people who think they've been abducted. And according to Hank, most of the time, some people just need therapy or a decent drink. He says, look, we've all got cameras these days. If you see something weird, take a picture. Try to calculate its size, how far away and where. And if you're abducted, please bring back a memento. Unfortunately, it seems that popular press is the biggest problem. And this is because if one person says that they thought a grey alien with big eyes and a big head to the press, 10 minutes later, due to social media, that's what everybody saw, which is kind of a fair point. And as I said at the beginning of this live, that's our problem. We've got so much good technology and the ability to manipulate it that sadly we can't trust it much anymore. But as Hank said, and if you get this joke, I swear to you, you are old. He said, I would love to be abducted by some of the triple-breasted ladies from Eroticon 6, but I don't think it will happen. If you get it, you're old. There are, however, some very credible accounts. There was the incident in Rouville, where something came down, and by the time they got there, it was gone. But the next morning, burn marks were there, and the CSIR even came and took samples. And then all of a sudden, nobody heard anything else about the landing. So I'd love to get proof of life out there, and I will in fact tell you a story that maybe was proof and maybe wasn't. Most people think that all of this is just pseudoscience, but no, it's real. At the moment, there is no credible South African centre where you can send your reports, but it's the kind of thing that we would like. Back in 2000, in a visit to Sutherland observatories on the hill outside the village, talking to one of the observers from the South African Astronomical Observatory, Dave Kilkenny, he said that no one knew how to spell my name before South Africa started importing Irish beer. And then, of course, he was asked, do you get a lot of ufologists calling you? And he said, no, because like us, we don't see what they want to see. But they don't get calls. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing out there. Or maybe it is a cover-up. Maybe it's a conspiracy. Karoo farmers and policemen on country cases often reported seeing orange lights dancing around in the sky in a whimsical, frolicking manner. In 75, a Loxton farmer actually saw 4 aliens and reported they were a bit on the small side. So maybe. In the Eastern Cape Karoo heartland in 2007, when the writer went to live there, they heard about the Rossmead landing. And there was a time not so long ago was tennis was the sport of kings in the Karoo. So the little railway village of Rossmead outside Middleburg was very proud of its newly built school tennis courts in 71. It was quite a thriving settlement back then, with quite a formidable rugby team, which matters if you're South African, and quite a large fuel storage tank and military camp. And on the night of November 12 in 1972, locals saw a bright light zigzagging across the sky. The light, also reported as a series of moving red lights, seemed to descend on the tennis court and disappear. Now, noted Middleburg historian Henny Coetzee was living in Rosemead at the time, and he too saw the lights. And it was reported by Cynthia Hyde in her book, African Encounters. And Henny Coetzee and others were interviewed by Miss Hind. And it seems that on the Monday, after citing a number of scorch marks and after the sighting, a number of scorch marks and holes were found in the tar of the tennis court. Trees near the court died, but their leaves bore burn marks, and a large rock had been flung some distance away. The tennis court was locked, and some of the chunks of tar that had been ripped out were sent off to the SA Police laboratories in Pretoria. Colonel Lothar Neethling, head of forensic, refuted any possible UFO landing theory. He said that nothing unusual had been found, and he suspected it was local vandals. Other local police sources were unconvinced and believed that no human could have done such damage to the court surface. Traces of tar used on the tennis court were found embedded in nearby trees, and small chunks were found lying on nearby ridges. It seemed an alien craft had hovered over the Rossmead and landed briefly, then using its afterburners, which damaged the court surface, simply took off again. Phonetically, at least, the Rossmead landing, or should it be the Rossmead takeoff, sounds a bit like Roswell. Mundosa, hey, welcome, welcome. I hope you are well too. Lovely to see you. I hope everything is going fantastically and you have sorted out your haunting problem. I wish you all the best with that and more, and I hope everything is fantastic. We're doing aliens at the moment. Now, one day in July in 1947, the flying disc landed on a ranch outside Roswell, as we know. But it could have been a lot of anything. And we all know that there has been all kinds of things to grow out of that, as you can imagine. A crazy week with clients is sometimes a good thing, Munlosa. Lots to do and at least a decent income in this modern day and age. So I'm glad to hear that it's been crazy for you. And yes, we've only just started, so I think it's going to be a very interesting topic. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is the Giant Square Kilometre Array, the SKA, in Northern Cape, founded by a number of people, including Professor Justin Jonas of Rhodes University. And this is connected to the SETI project. For those of you who don't know, and it's again an idea whereby people are trying to find out what might be out there. Is there anything? Now, SCAR has got a specialized listening thing going on with very powerful computers all over in their laboratories. So it seems that the aim of this is to get whatever information there might be out there as much as possible any kind of indication that, yes, we are not alone. Now, of course, some scientists consider the SETI people to be a bit eccentric, but they are tolerated because they are not taking off anyone else's time. And if anything is detected, of course, everybody will say that right there, they were supporting it all along. Yeah, sure, we know how that goes. So maybe there is a thing. We hope that Henk Swanepoel is safe wherever he might be, and maybe has even been fortunately abducted by Eccentrica Galambits. So, yeah, maybe he was lucky. Now, according to a very interesting thing, and yes, the universe is big and amazing, and there are lots of secrets to be discovered. And here is an interesting one that I hadn't thought about. So, in a comment on one of the articles that I was researching, it says, I am busy searching for a normal job at the moment. For the last 11 years, I've been a healer in KZN. I moved to the Western Cape 4 months ago after finalizing my divorce to a farmer. On our driving trip down, we quite by accident found ourselves spending a night in Williston. I knew we had to be there, but didn't know why. And during the night, I definitely received um, some healing um, from the trip. Our animals, a dog and cat, loved it there. And as a healer, I understand how all of this works, um, which is why I do this kind of thing. But I get my help from extraterrestrials. Maybe a controversial discussion, but they were the ones who taught me how to heal. And you might think I'm loony, and if that's true, that's fine. But we do need a support group in South Africa for abductees. People always say that they are crazy, and it is often traumatic. Um, but many that are abducted come back healed. So we need to find out more so that we can start up some kind of healing process. Well, I don't know about that, but it certainly sounds different. What do you think? Healing for abductees? I don't know how many people have said they were abducted in this country, but healing sounds good. Abducting, not so much. So, yeah. Starseeds out there. Now, that's a topic I will get into much later in the alien thing because it will be part of the concept of those affected by, and of course, the age old question of whether or not we actually came from here in the first place. But we will get there. In the beginning, we will just start with the UFOs and then take it further into the deeper dives. So, yeah, hold on to that thought for that. Now, a lot of people have said that um, they have seen things and recorded them. And what I find very interesting is that it seems that in South Africa, we very often seem to see the triangular ones or the light ones, which, yeah. And yes, most of us are hiding because we would sound crazy or mentally ill. Yes, I think that's a very fair thing. There is no greater resistance to knowing things than people who do not want to believe. But how true can we say? Well, in South Africa uh, is what is known as UFO Hill, specifically linked to Elizabeth Clara's alleged extraterrestrial encounter near Rosetta, KwaZulu-Natal. Now, this particular hill, where Clara claims to have been contacted by aliens in 1954, has a specific place, and you can go there. And she wrote about it in her book, Beyond the Light Barrier. And here is a story for you. I met her. When she wrote her book and tried to promote it, I actually spoke to her because I was working in a bookshop at the time. Um, and I have a story about this specific place. I visited UFO Hill and actually went there. And I also met her son, who apparently she fathered a child with the alien she encountered. So, maybe there is more to this story, and we are absolutely going to be keeping this for the next live because it's quite a long and involved story and a very interesting one, and it will link to the story that I will then tell you when I went to investigate this specific thing. Now, if you are a South African, where can you go to find aliens? Well, actually, there are a number of places that seem to be favorite spots for turning it. We all know Durban Harbour is hot for it. Then there is De Brug, Coligny, the M1 highway through Johannesburg, apparently, still by Merweville, Lindley, Cape Town and the Western Cape, especially for the lights type. Braeside Farm near Beaufort, again, lights and things. And of course, we have spoken of Ruwa in Zimbabwe, which is quite near South Africa, which is another reason why I added it to the list. So, yes, quite a few things out there. And I would add to this list and say a number around the Drakensberg. Why? Because I know people who have said they have seen them. Are they true? Well, I don't know. It all depends. We shall see. But while reports of UFO sightings in South Africa in 2024 are not explicitly detailed, there are mentions of increased sightings over the years, a surge in orange lights and flames in the sky. So there is increased awareness. There might be increased meteor showers which look like aliens. There may be reasonable explanations. And of course, these days, drones are a popular one, which could have something to say in that regard. Um, difficult to answer. However, what we have seen in South Africa, we are going to compare to things possibly seen in other countries as we go along. And that's going to be important, I think, simply because is it likely that we are seeing the same things? Now, of course, there are all kinds of questions in that regard as well. So don't feel that in any manner or form it will give us specific answers, but perhaps it will give us some. And if you are into all of these amazing and interesting aliens that may or may not be out there, I do encourage you to join us in the next one. Where we will discuss it further, including I will tell you all about my meeting with a lady who married an alien. And you may decide if she was off her nut or definitely more advanced than any of us. We shall see. And with that, I thank you greatly for joining me. It's been an absolutely fantastic live, and I have had a ball. I hope you have too. I will welcome you back in the next one. It will be tomorrow night, 10 o'clock South African time. That's GMT +2. And you are absolutely welcome to join in and invite your buddies. Bring in your friends. It would be wonderful to have discussions. And for those who joined in and commented and more, thank you very, very much. I hope you have enjoyed and had a wonderful, wonderful time. But until then, good night. Sleep sweet, sleep deep, but sleep with one eye open. And maybe keep a holy object near at hand. And maybe a baseball bat for the aliens, because you never know. Sometimes those things that go bump in the night might possibly go bump for you.